I'm hopeful, regardless of the outcome. Boost the positive energy without one. Sorry about the jab, I'm on a holy field. I'm bearing fruit, but demons try to eat them like Yoshi meals. I pissed them off the Batman like Falcone deals. Jungle full of predators, I know how Mowgli feels. So I got the fire, refuse to live in fear. I can spot suppliers, eating fresh drugs.
All right, welcome to episode 261 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion. The only pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. And now we're going to talk about prostitutes. But I'll get into that in a minute. Look, y'all, I'm not going to go through. My advertisers are just going to have to understand we got a lot of people on this broadcast, and we got a whole lot of things to cover. And look, y'all, if you're coming in right now, please do us a thumbs up. I mean, seriously, tell everybody you know that we're live right now, because we're going to be dropping tactical nukes of information on this show that is 180 degrees out of phase with everything you've been told about what's happened in Eastern Tennessee and Western North Carolina, which just happens to be where Billy's Jungle Palace of Love is currently located. So, look, y'all, I'm just going to kick it off by telling you what's been officially proclaimed. Right off the bat, I'm reading this article from Citizen Times, and it's basically from French riverkeeper Hartwell Carson basically said, and this was written on November 13th, 2024. And I quote, he says, we've checked everything out here, but things are overwhelmingly good. And I'm reading this. This is a direct quote. Also, Dr. Will's going to get a real good laugh out of this. Also, Rohit, he says, according to the Mountain True, the organization tested for roughly 185 chemical pollutants. I'm sure there's, Michelle, would you agree there's probably a few more than that?
Just a few.
Just a few. But anyway, he says, and I quote, almost none of those pollutants were found. And then according to Carson, this Hartwell Carson, the levels of chromium and mercury were well below the drinking water standard. And the levels were 28.9 milligrams per kilogram, which is well below the EPA's safe limit for soil, which is 400 milligrams per kilogram. And then he says, of course, later on, October 24th, Mountain True tested roughly 135 pollutants, and only 2 were present. And they were only isopropyltoluene and trimethylbenzene. Okay, I didn't just step out of the cotton field, y'all, but I'm pretty sure this stuff ain't wonderful. Bottom line is, everybody out there, everybody in this prostitute media, that's why I said permaculture, preparedness, practical living, and tonight we're going to talk about prostitutes. Look, let me just warn you right off the bat, y'all, you're going to hear some stuff tonight that might freak you out. But guess what? I'm here live with a bunch of people who are doers. It has been my policy, our policy of this show, to never offer a problem without offering at least a couple of solutions. And you're going to hear some, probably most certainly, from Pat and Dr. Will. Now, just briefly, we got Neethi. You heard me talk to her a little while ago, along with Rohit, her husband, and they did some testing. You're going to want to know about it. Bear Independent. He's on here as TJ Morris, but, we affectionately know him as Bear. Bear from the internet, as he's well known. If you don't know about Bear, you want to check out Grindstone Ministries. You also want to check out the other things he's doing, like Caleb House. And this is why we support Bear and give money every single month to Caleb House, because he's doing things that nobody else on this planet are doing right now. Dr. Will I had on a little while ago. We'll let you know about him here in a little while and what he discovered and the bombshells that he's absolutely discovered. And we were there to witness it this last Sunday. And then we got former UFC world champion Pat Miletich, soil scientist, soil savior these days. Got the coolest email address I've ever heard in my life. And Pat almost gave it out because it's that awesome. And of course, Jim, just Jim. He's over there in the bottom.
What did I say? It's just Jim.
No, we got Jim. He's also the host of their podcast as well. So Jim will jump in from time to time. But look, Bear is dealing with some stuff right now that would ordinarily crush most mortals. So right off the bat, Bear, I am just going to step back and let you take it away, because we're going to start with your results first. And I'm guessing it's not congruent with what I just read.
Well, good evening, Billy. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. And you got that awesome baritone. Hey, bro, I'll tell you what, if what you're doing right now on YouTube and the other thing doesn't work out, bro, you can also do some voice acting. And you could be a Barry White fill-in if you had to, man.
I got a
Just
face for radio, homie.
Yeah.
All right. So my name's TJ Morris, aka Bear from the internet. I am the founder and president of Grindstone Ministries, 501c3 nationally registered, same authority as the American Red Cross. We do disaster relief, which is different than disaster recovery. So we get in immediately after the storm, and our goal is preservation of life. Food, water, shelter, med, search and rescue, thermoregulation, management of displaced peoples, et cetera, et cetera. 100% privately funded. Don't take money from FEMA. Don't take money from the state government. Don't take money from municipalities. Don't take money from homeowners. We're just privately supported by the Bear Nation and folks like y'all. So with that preamble, we deployed to Hurricane Helene for approximately 30 days. We were based out of Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is on the border with North Carolina, Western North Carolina. And we had approximately 360 volunteers during that time. Predominantly what Grindstone does is debris remediation. That's what we're good at. Chainsaws, heavy equipment, dump trucks, dump trailers, haul the bad stuff out. We're like surgeons. Trust me enough for me to come in here, cut the bad stuff out, and then leave so you can begin to heal. That's what we do. Hurricane Helene, we did not do that. We were predominantly focused on distribution. We were Amazon for hill people. That's what we did because that's what the need was. You tell me what you need, I'll get it to you within 24 hours. And shout out to the awesome people who came out and volunteered, because we had mountains of excellent people who dropped everything they had, drove literally all the way across the country to come and sleep on a cot and love on people they never met before in their life. That's what makes Grindstone amazing. So I had a gut feeling that the soil and the water was bad. Call it intuition, call it whatever you want. We were telling our people from jump, stay out of the water, stay out of the silt. We did a 24-hour stand down at one point because we were getting reports of cadaver dogs getting sick, of first responders getting sick, of locals getting sick. And I needed more information because I didn't want any of the people who had come and volunteered their time and spent their own money to come out here and help to get sick as well. So we did a 24-hour stand down where we stayed at our FOB, the Cherry Grove Baptist Church, 104 Cherry Grove Road, Jonesboro, Tennessee. We stayed there for 24 hours so we could get a better handle on what was going on. During that time, we decided to start taking soil and water samples. We were also encouraging everybody in the community, the local law enforcement, local governance, the residents, constituents, everybody, to take soil samples, take water samples, and take multiples and send one set to the state testing labs, and then send other sets of samples to independent labs so we could compare contrast to find out whether the state labs were giving different data than what the private individual labs were giving. So, excuse me, we took a lot of different samples. Specifically what I'm going to tell you about today, and for anybody who wants to, you can just screenshot this little matrix. It's right here. The yellow is bad. Okay. The yellow is yellow, green, whatever that is. I'm super colorblind. The highlighted areas are bad. Okay. So this is coming out of Bumpus Cove, Tennessee, which is right on the Nolichucky River, which is right upstream from Little Germany. If you've been following Grindstone Ministries, you'll be familiar with the people of Little Germany. So with that, we took 7 water and soil samples from Bumpus Cove in the Little Germany area. And I'll read you the conclusion of the report that we've got here. Conclusion: the correlation between soil levels and permissible exposure levels, immediately dangerous to life and health, or lethal dose, 50% lethal dose, is difficult because each is measuring a different route of entry. IDLH, immediately dangerous to life and health, is typically concerned with airborne concentrations, while lethal dose is oral ingestion. However, the soil level of contamination along the Nolichucky River exceeds the permissible exposure level by 10 to 1,000 fold, and it should be extrapolated that the levels inhaled through the dust and or absorbed through the skin could exceed their permissible exposure levels. Humans would be impacted by dust inhalation, dust settling on skin and then sweating, allowing absorption through the skin and absorption through wet mud into clothing and through skin. Gastrointestinal issues and headaches were the most common symptoms of excessive exposure to these heavy metals, arsenic and barium being the most likely culprits of any potential injury. Their levels in soil exceeded the permissible exposure level by a multiple of 827 and 17,000, respectively. Cadaver dogs were reported to have been ill. Their body mass is lower, and routes of entry would have been through their paws and wet soil, inhalation through looking for cadavers, as well as ingestion through cleaning themselves and drinking from puddles. Now, let me take a moment to pause. There are, of the different types of minerals or issues that they're looking for here. Forgive me, I'm not a scientist and I don't play one on YouTube. They were looking for arsenic, barium, cadmium, chromium, lead, mercury, selenium, silver, and manganese. Above the permissible exposure level were arsenic, barium, cadmium, chromium, lead, and selenium. How much above? Arsenic, permissible exposure level 0.01, actual 8.27. Barium, permissible 0.05, actual 853.73. Chromium, permissible 0.05, actual 57.42. Lead, permissible 0.05, actual 194.06. Selenium, permissible 0.2, actual 2.26. Now, Bumpus Cove has a long history that has to do with the nuclear fuels in that area, and there has been dumping in the area for several decades. We cannot exclusively say whether or not the soil samples that we got were because of what happened at Hurricane Helene or because of the dumping that occurred previously. However, I had been saying from jump, when people started to rebuild in this area, that they shouldn't, because the water in the soil is bad. And I understand how difficult that is, because you own this land, it's your land, your family's been here for 100, 200 years, you want to rebuild here. But the water is dangerous, the soil is dangerous, and this is why we explicitly told our people to stay out of the water, stay out of the silt, because it's filled with bad things. Now, this sample was taken that has all these levels, over the levels that I just quoted to you. This is from the mud flats in the silt in Bumpus Cove. So I have reason to believe that this isn't groundwater contamination from the 1980s, that this is from the silt of the Nolichucky River post-Hurricane Helene because of where that sample was taken. I'll continue with the conclusion of this report, and then I'll be done for this portion. There's also the possibility of biological contamination through ruptured sewer lines. Again, this is a professional report that we paid $5,695 for this one report, we being Grindstone. There is also the possibility of biological contamination through ruptured sewer lines, septic tanks, dead humans, and livestock. The generation of hydrogen sulfide gas is also a possibility that could have impacted cadaver dogs. Mud flats with oxygen-starved organic material in the sediment can produce generally low levels of hydrogen sulfide. Shorelines with significant amounts of decaying organic material can create hydrogen sulfide problems. In the environment, hydrogen sulfide is produced from the bacterial breakdown or decomposition of dead plants and animal matter, especially where there is a lack of oxygen, like in the silt. At lower concentrations, it smells like rotten eggs. At higher concentration levels, it has a sickening sweet odor, which, inserting my own observations here, many NGOs reported running into that odor. Some of them didn't know what that odor was. Continuing from the report, at extremely high levels, a person can lose their ability to smell the gas and become unaware of its presence. Hydrogen sulfide is heavier than air, so it can build up in low-lying areas and enclosed spaces. Low concentration may irritate the eyes, nose, throat, and respiratory system. Asthmatics may experience difficulty in breathing. Moderate concentration can cause more severe eye and respiratory irritation, headache, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. And here's the crux of the report for my people, Grindstone. No members of Grindstone Ministries team reported any health issues. Now, I will insert here. We did have an ick going around at our FOB. General malaise, upper respiratory infection type stuff. And we had concern because of the particulates that were in the air coming from the silt that we believe to be infected to be an environmental hazard post-storm. And that's why we did that 24-hour stand down. And we had people who went to the hospital, people who were seen by doctors, who had tests done to make sure that if this was not an environmental issue, this was just your typical seasonal ick. And praise the Most High, it turned out to be just a typical seasonal ick. Any issue that may have arisen would have been from acute exposure. No further potential risk of adverse health impacts exists, as all personnel and volunteers have deployed from the site. If Grindstone redeploys to the area, this information will be valuable in establishing proper PPE and safety measures for each person volunteering their time and resources to help the people impacted by Hurricane Helene. And this is what I want to end with for my portion here. We know Bumpus Cove from the silt. That's what the report looks like. It's not supposed to be highlighted. It is. It's really bad. Okay. We also know, per the report, that none of our people were exposed to that because we did a 24-hour stand down, made sure everybody had PPE. And from jump, I told people we're not mucking out houses. My intuition says we're not mucking out houses. We're not doing it. And the reason I felt compelled to participate in what is going on this evening is, number one, for the safety of the people that are still there. Okay. The people that live there, that have to be in this silt, that have to drink this water, and the people who have come to help them, who are now engaging in the restoration phase of putting things back together again. You have relief and then recovery, right? Relief is short-term, recovery is long-term. Grindstone does disaster relief. We're in and out in a week to 6 weeks, typically speaking. We're on Helene for 30 days. People will be rebuilding there for years and years and years. And if the silt is bad and the water is bad, they are going to be exposed to things that could potentially harm them and or kill them. And I want that out there, because nobody else is talking about it. Billy, to your point, the open reporting is that everything's fine. Business as usual. Let's get back to rebuilding. Okay, so my primary concern is safety for NGOs, 501c3s, and the residents. My second concern, and I've got three, my second concern is that people understand, because there's been so much reporting about what FEMA did or didn't do or should have done, blah, 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 blah. Most people do not realize the primary reason that FEMA exists is for continuity of government. It is not for disaster relief. For every $1 that FEMA spends on natural disasters, they spend $12 on continuity of government. And everybody who's listening should do themselves a favor and Google enduring constitutional government. That's FEMA's job. That's their primary job. And disaster relief is cover for action. So, of course, they did a terrible job, because their actual job is protecting the government, not protecting you. Okay, so yeah, they're terrible at their job. They've been terrible for as long as I've been doing this, which is since Hurricane Katrina, 19 going on 20 years. They're always going to suck. They absolutely sucked during Hurricane Helene, and they're going to suck during the next one and the next one after that, because it's not their job. However, this is the first storm I've ever worked from Hurricane Katrina forward where FEMA was part of the problem. They weren't just in the way, they were part of the problem. And that's very curious to me. Lastly, my third concern is accountability. What does that look like? What is the point of getting all this information out here if there's nothing that we can do with it? We should, for the preservation of life, make sure that the people who are living there and working there aren't going to get sick. But to what end? At what point? How do we hold these people accountable? Whoever it is that is hiding the reports that are coming out, that is whitewashing the information before it hits the mainstream media, the politicians, local, state, national, the people who are buying up land at a fraction of the cost after this, the people who are trying to reopen mines that have been closed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think what you're doing here is good, and it should be done, which is why I'm being a part of it. But I'm a strategic thinker. I think, where does this go next? And how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And I don't have an answer to it, but I hope that we can figure one out. And that's my piece for the evening.
No, Bear. Hey, before you run away, I know you got a lot going on there. Michelle's going to kind of add to your report there. Well, first of all, folks, if you didn't notice already, what Bear said was 180 degrees out of phase with what's being officially proclaimed. Now, as far as what we can do about it, well, we're going to talk about solutions that once we drop the bad news, we're going to start with the good. And that's where, Dr. Will and Pat really come into things. Well, Dr. Will's also going to drop some bad too, and worse than many of you would ever want to hear. Part of it is, look, Biden just announced the other day, we just gave $1 billion to African nations for rebuilding after natural disasters. But meanwhile, the people up here are struggling on the whopping $750 they got from Uncle Sam. All these people that are supposed to be able to be eligible for temporary unemployment, many of which aren't getting anything. I know some that are, but many aren't, or they're being given the runaround. And then, of course, there's going to be that part of our citizenry that say, oh, well, gee, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't want to pay attention. Well, you can't do anything about Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, but you pay attention to that. So I guess in a nutshell, what we're really trying to do is spotlight some cockroaches and spotlight this entire system. But before we go to Michelle, y'all, I just want you to know, first of all, I want you to hit that thumbs up because everybody needs to know about this. Number one, and it's going to let the algorithms out there to let everybody know that we are live. And number two, there are some strange things going on. So if you don't see this feed, I should have said this from the very beginning, but if for some reason this feed gets taken down for whatever, because the powers that shouldn't be don't want this information out there, we'll keep on rocking on and then we'll eventually put it up on Rumble. But we've had some weird things happen already electronically. X would not allow us to put this on X. Okay, despite everybody talking about how much of a free speech platform it is, well, they wouldn't have us. So right now we should be broadcasting on Instagram Live and also in all of our platforms right here on YouTube. So Michelle, Bear, this is to your point, and this is actually in the area that you were talking about. Michelle came up with another little article that you might want to know about.
So Nuclear Fuel Services is located 0.2 miles from the Nolichucky River in Irwin. They process highly enriched uranium for naval nuclear reactors and power plants. They said their official statement after Hurricane Helene is everything's fine. We've suffered minor damage, nothing to see here. However, this article in the Knoxville News states that back in 2007, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission found out that there was a spill back in 2006, a spill of highly enriched uranium, and they didn't tell anybody about it for national security reasons. So there was a spill that happened in 2006 that they didn't tell anybody about, but they want us to believe that everything's just fine after Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, so basically this spill, of course, there's no details as to how or why or whatever, but the bottom line being, you lied about it then, but people are so willing to be spoon-fed these lies from the powers that shouldn't be. So, I mean, Bear, in your response to any of that, I mean, I'm sure you're not surprised.
So, first of all, a little just map recon. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is essentially co-located with Nuclear Fuel Services. They are next door to each other. They share a property line. It's just so everybody understands what the level of cronyism that's possible here, that literally one half of the fence belongs to each of them. Okay. They're literally right next door to each other in Irwin. So surprise, surprise, they're covering for each other's tracks. Next, and this is rumor. Okay. But it is, and I don't know if it's single source, it's been repeated by 1,000 different voices, or if there's multiple different witnesses on this. I don't know. If you look at Google Earth and you look at Nuclear Fuel Services along the highway here that's right next to the river, there's an old pole barn. And the old pole barn is where, per NFS, their statements immediately after the flood was that what was damaged at Nuclear Fuel Services was that pole barn, and that there were training barrels of cesium-137, etc., that were located in that pole barn for training purposes. Again, rumored, unconfirmed by me. And that the only structure that was affected was that pole barn that had training materials in it. However, immediately after that, drone footage was acquired of their property. And if you look on Google Maps, if you look at Nuclear Fuel Services in Irwin, due east is a metal building, about an 8,000 square foot metal building. And that metal building, talking to locals, is used for cleaning all of the contaminated pieces, parts, etc. And that building flooded as well. And all the stuff that was in that building washed away. And where it went down the Nolichucky, I have no idea. But it wasn't again, roommate, and I'm saying this mostly because I'm not suicidal.
None of us are, by the way.
None of us are, but that building that's used for decontaminating all of that equipment that's used for processing these nuclear fuels, that building was severely compromised, and it wasn't just training materials. And so even the talking line of it's just training materials that washed away that were stored in a pole barn, that was confirmed to be untrue using drone footage, aerial footage of their property within days of that official statement coming out. Oh, it's just training material. So that's known to be untrue as well. And I've seen that drone footage with my own eyes. So there are truths, half-truths, complete lies just being thrown out when it comes to NFS. And I wanted to just bring that up. And the Nuclear Regulatory Committee, or whatever they call themselves, the nuke muckety mucks, are literally next door to nuclear fuel services. And so the fact that one would cover for the other doesn't surprise me a bit. So I just wanted to add a little bit of color to your statement.
Yeah, we're done with this, y'all. Bear with us. It's going to take a minute. Forgive the pun, but it's going to take a minute to weave this little tapestry here. And that's why we're going to go to, is there anything else you want to add, Bear, before we run over to Rohit and Neethi?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Good man, bro. I can't thank you enough. And as like Bear said a moment ago, folks, that's why we started Living Soil Foundation, is because these tests are not cheap. I mean, this stuff is very, very expensive. And in order to find out the remediation strategies that I'm working with Dr. Will and Pat on, the only way to know that this stuff is happening is if we're able to get confirmation through not only the testing that Dr. Will does, the scalar testing, but also the kind of testing that Bear just did. So we're going to confirm what we're able to do through these testing. But I don't want to waste any more time. Once again, folks, if for some reason this feed drops, go find us on Rumble. We're going to rock on. I don't know what may or may not happen, but once again, if you're in here right now, there's only like 500 hands up or thumbs up. Tell everybody we're live, y'all. I mean, it takes a second to go over here. These people they're rocking for the love right now. Everybody's doing this on their own dime, and we really need your help to get this word out, because, I mean, that's the whole reason of doing this. Everybody in the prostitute media is absolutely lying to you. So with that,
hey, Billy.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go hold my sick baby, but I am simulcasting this on the Bear Independent channel as well. There's about 1,300 people over there who are also watching. So we're going to let this continue to play on my channel because I trust you. And yeah, thank you for having me on this evening. I'm going to go do dad stuff.
Well, if Dad wants to come back, thanks a lot, Bear. If Dad wants to come back and jump in at any time, if you're able, by all means, bro, you know the deal.
Best information, worst production quality. That's what I'm known for. So,
all right. Awesome, bro. All right. With that said, we're going to toss the ball. Okay. So before I toss it over to Rohit and Neethi, let me just kind of give you a background of why. First of all, y'all, I'm reaching out to people like Dane Wigington, who, by the way, if you don't know, he was on the show, geoengineeringwatch.org, had Dane Wigington on looking at Bear's results. And he was like, with barium numbers like that, I mean, this is a guy who knows what he's talking about when it comes to these kind of results. Dane Wigington looked at it and he's like, oh my goodness, that is just unbelievable. I mean, that's not coming from a chemtrail. That didn't come from geoengineering. That's something on the ground that got leaked into this thing. We got a real mess here. So when I was looking all over trying to find some reliable lab in the whole 9 yards, I couldn't find anybody, y'all. And so I'm praying to the good Lord, literally, like, Lord, please open up the opportunity. And then Neethi called up about that time. Neethi, the pharmacist, remember I had her on the show a while back. And, you know, I'll put it this way, man. She's like, remember that little cartoon Captain Caveman where you ask for something, he yanks it up out of his beard, man. You know, I mean, a chainsaw, you name it. Well, I'm telling her, look, I can't find a lab and I'm about ready to throw my hands in the air. And so she solved that problem. So with that said, I'm going to throw it on over to Rohit and Neethi, and we're going to let you know what they have.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks for hosting.
I'm
just really glad that that Dr. Will, you guys you, Pat, and Jim showed up, because we comprehend that this testing that we did is EPA standard. It is coming from accredited labs. And no matter what our relationship might be with the lab, we know that it's not going to be the same as the private testing. So bless you guys for showing up. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Should I go ahead and add to the stage your slideshow, or how did you want to go about this, Rohit?
It's fine. We can just talk about it.
Okay.
Not a problem. So we got into this because you called us, and we're just literally here to do something. Make sure we're protecting the people and their assets. I mean, that's literally why we did this. And you called, and we answered, basically. So we chose 3 locations. We were going to choose some more locations, but they were running along the same river. So we chose to keep the sample quantity low just because of cost and things like that. I mean, just all these samples that we did take cost us about $8,300 out of our pocket already. So we took 3 sample locations of where you basically said that there were some really bad things going on, where people were getting sick, cadaver dogs were dying, things like that. So we chose those based on access and where potentially there was a lot of sick people or people getting sick in general. So the first location was in and around Asheville and Swannanoa. Then we went to Woodfin, and we went to Rollins. Those were the 3 locations. And basically, we did a whole bunch of testing for soil and water. We did organics, we did metals, we did fecal coliform for the soil, and for the water, we tested for organic compounds, total volatile organic compounds, the 8 RECRA metals. We did radiological testing of the water as well, radium and uranium, and some bacteriological samples as well. So just to give you some results, the first location, we had levels, total dissolved solids was 70.9. So what that really means is that basically 71% of the soil is nutrient dead. Won't grow anything. So that's important to get right off the bat, right? If the soil is not healthy, it's not going to come back to life. The barium levels were not so elevated in the first location. They were detectable, but they weren't elevated. Chromium levels were elevated, but not enough, according to the lab, to affect human health. Lead levels were 2.5 micrograms per kilogram. So that's a good amount of lead in the water. Fecal coliform counts that the lab gave us for the first location were 231 colony forming units. That's pretty high. That's also an indication of warm-blooded animals that have died.
Now, this is weeks after, Rohit. Let me just go ahead and say real quick. Now, you came out. This is not like right after the disaster. This is weeks later that you came and got samples.
Yeah, this is like 3 or 4 weeks ago. This is relatively late in the game in that sense. And there was also methylene chloride detected in the samples. It was at 15.2 micrograms per kilogram. And then location 2, the things that stand out, the total dissolved solids were 96%. So that's 96% of the soil that's dead and no nutrients. Chromium levels were at 8.12 micrograms per kilogram. Lead levels were higher. They were at 6.26. And then the third location, the soil, the total dissolved solids, the soil was at 66.5%. Total dissolved solids. The barium was really high at 63.8 micrograms of barium. Chromium levels were at 16.1 micrograms per kilogram. Lead levels were at 5.47 micrograms per kilogram. And then there was also mercury levels found at the third sample in Rollins, and that was at 0.021 micrograms per kilogram. And the colony forming units for fecal coliform were at 150. That's just the soil. The water sampling, in general, the barium levels were detectable. They weren't super high. They were at 0.023 micrograms per liter. But the thing that really stood out was that the radiological samples in location 3 came up at 9 picocuries per liter. That was pretty significant. The first 2 locations didn't have any radiological levels, but the third one did.
Let me stop you for a moment there, because a lot of us are going to get lost in the weeds here. So
Sure.
what exactly does that mean? I know you're an engineer, and you're going to have to break this down for us mortals.
No, that's fine. So what that really means is that there was radium 226 and radium 228 that was found in the water samples, and we took it from a moving stream. Okay, and the only thing we can really compare it to that I know of is the safe drinking water level, which is supposed to be at 5 picocuries, and we were getting 9 picocuries. So it's much higher than the drinking water standard. So if this is getting into your drinking water, it's high.
Wow, so that's 180 degrees, once again, out of phase with what was reported by Mountain True and the Citizen Times, and you did your testing a considerable amount of time after they did. So one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
I think I just want to ask everybody to consider, like, how much poison is good enough for you, number one. And then number two, these are living waterway. I mean, the water is moving, and it's been continuously moving and filtering through the earth for weeks. So this should be very concerning. Like, where is this poison coming from? That it's not like the storm came and it washed through, and if we would have tested it right then, and then it would have over time, because nature has our back. Like, it's going to work on remediating itself. But it was still so high.
And this is weeks removed. I mean, what must it have been, just prior to that? And folks, like I said, I mean, just hold steady because where Michelle and I met Dr. Will this last Sunday, it was basically where all of these rivers, the Nolichucky, where all of them converge over near Lake Douglas. This is dreadful stuff that's going on here. But the thing is, look, don't shoot the messenger, y'all. I mean, we're just trying to let you know right now that what you are being officially told. I mean, Rohit, when he came out to get the samples, he was like, man, the smell, if I remember right, bro, I can't remember if it was location 2 or 3, but you were like, man, the smell just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it was location 2, and it just stunk. I mean, and it was a very windy day that day that we were out there. And it didn't make you like stop and not go there, but you could definitely tell that the odor was pungent. If it wasn't for the windy day, I don't think that we may have wanted to stay there too much longer than we did.
So as an environmental engineer yourself, I mean, what's your overall analysis regarding, okay, if you were a person living alongside this river in if any of these communities, would you find any of these places acceptable? Like Neethi said, and she even has a t-shirt, and I got it. You see me wear it from time to time. It says there's no 80-20 rule for poison. I mean, would you be comfortable or having your family live near this?
No, of course not. I mean, there's heavy metals in the soil. There's radiological material in the water. There's, everything's elevated. It's concerning.
Yeah. I mean, look, we know people don't need to just be displaced, but these murderers, I just want to say, these murderers, they murdered over almost what, 250,000 people. It's not like it wasn't 200 people. This is important for folks to comprehend. And then on top of that, how many of these people that are up there right now over these past 3, 4, 12 weeks, how many weeks has it been now? I mean,
every day's Monday. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know anymore. I drive around and I see freaking disaster everywhere.
right. I just am saying, like, when are we going to start hearing about their cancers, their, all the side effects of what's happening over time? I mean, so, everybody processes things at a different level. I'm sure Dr. Will's going to break this down for us. But like, I mean, as just a mother, I can't imagine. They should be housing these folks. They should be helping the people, evacuate. We should be in a state of emergency on North Carolina. What is Governor Cooper doing? What is happening?
And most, like, to your point, Neethi, as a mother, if I found out I had my kids playing next to in this contaminated soil and the whole community and the media is telling me it was fine, that is completely unacceptable.
Why are we not in a state of emergency? I mean, I'm so confused. We should have been in a state of emergency immediately, but even now.
I mean, like, just the lead levels alone, right? We always hear about lead and kids being exposed to it. And there's so many rules and regulations just about lead exposure to kids that, there's fines and things like that all the time about lead. Just that alone should make you think, like, what is happening up there that's any different than if somebody was to just scrape paint off of a house and leave it, and you have 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds playing next door. It's the same thing, but we're not doing anything for anybody up there. Meanwhile, people are getting regulated left and right everywhere else.
Yeah. Sure.
Also, the other point I want to make up there is that there are people who were renting who are not being excused from renting. Like, if I was renting up there, I should be able to just leave and go live somewhere else. Because if we were renting there, we would get our stuff and leave and go rent somewhere else, because you could just literally go anywhere else and rent. Why would you? And they're trying. Don't
No, Neethi, I get it. I mean, my response to this is hell to the no, no, because the fact of it is, when you get down to brass tacks on this thing, it pisses me off to no end that we got money for warfare. They want to go on about the welfare mom, but they don't got anything to say about the warfare banker. They don't have anything to say. We got billions.
This is a war. This is a war. They have attacked our nation state, and I'm still trying to figure out why nobody's up in arms about that. And then now they're talking about how people have donated tiny homes and all these things, and then somebody wants to come around and try to talk about permitting. Are you for real right now? Are you serious? And also, if they have tiny homes and those things to donate, why aren't we relocating some of these folks down into one of those tiny homes anywhere else on North Carolina, so that they're not in a radiation zone?
I'll do you one better, Neethi. It's not even, they don't even have a lot of them in tiny homes. They got them in freaking tents. We were just down in the community. I'm not going to say which one, but Michelle and I were just there today. It's going to be the site of where I'm doing the collaboration with Dr. Will and Pat with what we're working on. It's one of the remediation. This is also going to be ground zero for recovery and all the other things that are going on. But we'll come to that in a minute, folks. But we got to tell you the problem before we talk about the solution. Because like I said, it's the policy of this program. We don't just offer a problem without them throwing out some solutions here. So we're going to bring that up in a minute. So just hold steady, folks. We were just in a place today. I kid you not, Michelle, tell them if I'm lying, but we're down there. They got them in fifth wheels. They got them in campers. They got them in tents. They got them in everything you can possibly name. They're dropping 300-pound propane barrels or propane tanks out there. And these folks, it's so freaking cold here. It's going to be 12 tonight in Western North Carolina, folks. It doesn't happen. And by the way, they were just chemtrailing a couple of days ago. But I digress.
every
yeah.
day, all the way down to the ground.
But like, it ain't bad enough. Like, we weren't hard enough to kill during the storm. Now all of a sudden it's getting down in the sub. I mean, it is just nasty. And think about how cold it is alongside a river. And then these folks already down to their last inch of skin are having to put up with all this, and they got them in flipping tents. But
And how is
$750?
How is $750 going to help them relocate or anything? Why are they not being offered alternative housing? The corporatocracy is the enemy here, friends. The corporatocracy is who we're warring against, and this is a spiritual war. This is much bigger than anything that we've ever experienced, and the interference in nature right now is off of the charts. And when are we going to stand up and say, stop it?
Well, sadly, we live in such a decadent society that I think only starvation can cure it. I mean, honestly, at this point. Rohit, is there anything else you'd like to add as far as these? Okay, well, first of all, let me ask you, what do you think of these numbers of, they're saying they tested as an environmental engineer. I mean, do you think they said they tested for roughly, and this is a quote, roughly 185 chemical pollutants, and almost none of the pollutants were found in any of the samples. Does that sound believable to you?
No. I mean, no, it's just it's not believable, because I tested. I have results directly. I've got positive numbers, elevated numbers. So I don't know, I'd have to delve into it more. Maybe they're taking readings or measurements in locations that are maybe not even near the river banks.
There you go. They can say, well, technically we were on the river, but maybe they were 100 miles upstream.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they could be playing semantics here.
Yeah.
Man, you guys have done some yeoman's work, and they're doing fantastic stuff, y'all. Let's we'll swing back, because we're going to talk solutions in a minute, but let's go on down to Dr. Will. Dr. Will, you're going to have to unmute. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, folks, I mean, Dr. Will, basically, he's the reason why my Instagram account is locked out. I'm blaming you for that because I did the short that you and I did down by the Rollins community. And I kid you not, I put it on there, and we got another intrepid reporter that I'm going to interview tomorrow night. All of a sudden, people are trying to reach out to me. I put that, it was just like a 30-second clip or a 1-minute clip that I had of you and me. And you were talking about your immediate results and what you found. Well, not only, I mean, there's a weird phenomenon going on, and apparently it happened to Dr. I can't think of her name right now. You're supposed to be helping me out
Naomi
right
Wolf?
Yeah, Naomi Wolf, where I can't see my own Instagram account from any device that I have, but everybody else can. So I got locked out of my own Instagram account, but everybody else can see it. We can post on it. As long as we don't use one of mine. So it's one of those weird coincidences that just happened to unfold when Dr. Will dropped his information. So, Dr. Will, we met up with you the other day over
again.
Again. One of these days we got to actually link up and have fun together. But yeah. So here we were at another location. You reached out and said you were going to be at this location. Michelle and I met you over there, and I know that I can't say the location because the firemen that we met with were a little bit freaked out. Why don't you kind of tell us what went down there?
Well, I got a call from some SAR team guys after our first interview we did a few weeks ago, because they were in their wetsuits for hours. One of them said 72 hours actually, and got so severely chemically burned underneath his wetsuit doing SAR stuff in the water that it was amazing to me. So I decided to put some stuff together and go meet these people and teach them how to use some stuff to at least treat those those burns. And we'll call it what it is chemical burns. You don't get chafed under your wetsuit like that. It just doesn't happen. So you get blisters, you get skin damage, you get burning, you get all these. It's straight up chemical burns because we did testing. So the testing we did was actually one of the municipal water sources. Then we were testing several different open water sources, and then several soil samples that were either underwater at the beginning or still near the water. So it was silty mud, different types. The acid levels were 50% to almost 300% more than a battery acid. Billy, you saw that. We did an example right there. I wanted to do it real time for them so they could see what a battery battery acid, and then what this water soils. The acid levels were astronomical. The radiation fallout numbers were about the same as we did the first video upstream. What was that, 80 miles or something? It was about the same there, which was extremely high. So radiation fallout, that is an all-inclusive. So that's not just 100 elements. There's thousands of elements in the radiation fallout number. Just like the chemical poison index and the acid numbers, those are literally thousands of elements, all inclusive into one test. And so I haven't done specifics at this point because I was waiting for some other data, but we will be doing some further testing. But so we got chemical burns, and then we got radiation of all different. We did look at yttrium, and we looked at some uranium, different strains of frequencies of uranium, yttrium. I don't know, Pat, you have that from that very first test, but so it's fairly consistent whether we're upstream, downstream. I'll be doing some testing closer on the Tennessee River because according to some of the reports now, some of that acids and that radiation is already making its way fairly far down the Tennessee River on its way to the Mississippi and then the Gulf of Mexico. While we were there for a couple of hours with Billy, and I stayed a little bit longer to do some training. But I'll tell you, the mucosal lining in my sinuses and my eyes were burning. It was crazy, and the people we were working with had this. They were complaining that's been going on the whole time, just about.
So we just have to be in a location where all of these rivers basically converge.
Yeah. Well, come to find out, and I haven't got the pictures yet, but there is right now in those rivers that converge into that lake, 275 gallon totes of acids, different kinds. I'm waiting for the labels, pictures of those labels, and some of those blue barrels that mysteriously, those training barrels that Bear was talking about. So that's very interesting to me. And then I've had some information given to me just like an hour ago, right before the show. Actually, no, it's been 2 hours now. Sorry. Again, referring back to the that nuclear chemical engineering site there that Bear was talking about. And they're definitely not telling the truth, as in, because some of those ponds, it was reported to me that some of those ponds, they're gone now. They have storage areas, big outdoor storage ponds and whatnot. They're gone. And so I'm awaiting some validation or verification of those with some footage that like Bear was talking about, some aerial footage. So we've got people on the ground that's trying to get us some real data that corresponds basically to justify what we're getting in these numbers. The acid numbers, chemical poison index, the heavy metal poison index is just elevated off the charts. The radiation thing, that's what really bothers me, is some of that stuff isn't going to be fully physically realized for a while if you don't leave and do some intervention, supplementation or something, because it takes a while for some of those radioactive elements to start to bioaccumulate and really start to cause havoc in people's bodies. And I was asked a question there is, well, should I stay or should I move? You know, I mean, on a logical side, there's no way that I would recommend anybody staying in that environment. There's just no way. But these people aren't moving, and so you got to do something. You have to supplement, get stuff into your body, onto your body. You know, stay. I mean, it's just you're in a war zone. Like Nani was saying earlier, there, it literally. And I've been in around war zones and these kind of things in the past. This is no different. This is worse because you've got chemicals and radiation poisoning that you really can't see at all. But you can sure feel it. I felt it in my nose. It's you know, it's still a little bit plugged. My sinus, I got a little bit, still a little headache behind my eye. But you know, I did there. I went there. I'm helping the best I can with what I got.
Dr. Will, let me kind of back up a little bit, because the firemen that we were there with, it was astonishing because they even had pictures of planes that fly over whenever nuclear whatever happens. As a former soldier, I've never seen these planes, but they had pictures of them. And then they also reported that right after this storm went through and this calamity unfolded, I mean, the most astonishing part, well, I mean, there were so many different parts of it. One of the most astonishing parts of their stories was the fact that out of nowhere, black helicopters with no writing on them, which, by the way, is not even legal, showed up out of nowhere. They're touching down on the ground. They're picking up something. Nobody knows what it is. And then they're flying away with it. Do you have an opinion on that part of the story? Because to my understanding, I mean, first of all, these guys, folks, let me just tell you right now, there wasn't a single fireman in that house that was willing to go on camera with me. I'm like, please, let me tell your story. I would love to get it out there. And these guys are, I think, afraid for their lives because, as I understand it, even, what is it, black SUVs were following some of them around. Weird, crazy things were unfolding. I mean, what do you say to all that? Because I was there, I witnessed, I heard the stories.
So yeah, they all told me the same thing. And that's been going on since this whole time, because they're not just SARS, they're also, you know, real humans helping humans. And they got helicopters that I was told to call sniffers, and they've got the ability from the air to detect radiation and different chemicals from the air at several hundred feet high. And I've seen that, and I watch those things. I've got friends that their pastime basically is watching the sky. I mean, there's a whole YouTube guy called Monkey Works. He talks about that stuff. You can track these things. And so they noticed that there's these helicopters with these dome looking things underneath, sniffers, and they're doing basically grid patterns all up and down those rivers. And then some of those black copters would come in, get down, you know, land, do whatever they're doing, and leave with whatever they're taking. And so and they also said that there's people in full hazmat suits, respirated up, the whole nine, that are walking the banks of these rivers and in the lake there. They're looking for stuff, but yet they say the water's all good. Just for clarity, the municipal water, mind you, was half as hot as the mud and the open water. So in order for that groundwater to get that polluted, a lot of saturation has to take place. That's not fresh contamination in the municipal water like that. So there's no way that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey guys. So I was sitting on the couch and I heard black helicopters, and I just felt the need to come back in here for a minute. So I mentioned that we
There was
were
some blue
fobbed up.
ones though too, Bear. There was some
Well,
blue ones.
I'm colorblind. So we were fobbed up at Cherry Grove Baptist Church in Jonesboro, Tennessee. We were working, when I say we, Grindstone Ministries was working as far out as we had people in Irwin, we had people in Unicoi, Pensacola, North Carolina, Bailey, the Upper Pigeon Roost Baptist Church outside of Bailey. We were up to 4 hours away from our fob, sending strike teams out every day. We interacted with thousands of people in the local community, and we had thousands of people come to our fob to receive millions of pounds in donations that we distributed. And so we had literal, legitimate humaniters, human intelligence operatives, as part of this deployment, who were knowingly or unknowingly debriefing people. We had myriad reports of unidentified black helicopters, with beach ball looking fangs on them, flying up and down the rivers really slowly, predominantly from evening till dawn. Which tells you something. They're flying at night at a very low elevation. So that's not going to be your average helicopter driver. And so we specifically started to go back and look to see who was transponding, and were these UH-60s or MH-60s, because they were 60s. And there were a lot of 60s being flown around between the National Guard, 101st, the 82nd, the state police elements. There were a lot of 60s flying around. Whose 60s are these? And we never got an answer to it, but it sounded like, and again, I cannot confirm this, but just adding a data point, it sounded like these were mission configurable MH-60s that were unidentifiable and were not transponding, and they were observed by multiple residents going up and down the rivers consistently, downstream from nuclear fuel services. So take that data point and do what you want to do with it.
Hang on, Barry. You're telling me that the same beach ball that these firemen, Michelle and I were in the same firehouse as Will is being told these stories as well. So the same beach balls, the same black helicopters, the same touch and go, the same whole, and you never heard me or Will or Michelle, any of us talk about this before now, and you're confirming the very same doggone thing that these firemen told us out there. Unbelievable.
I handed my sick baby to my wife, who's also sick, to get up and come in here and add this to the conversation, because no, we've never conversed about this. But I heard what you were saying. I wanted to corroborate it based upon witness testimony of thousands of individuals who live in those communities that we interacted with during our deployment. So there's a data point for you.
You're the man. Hey, folks, I want to
Thank you, Bear.
There's a whole lot of people out there that are listening to this right now. You're probably in this. Look, if you can confirm any of this, please do not waste my time and say, send me an email, Billy@perma. I hope I don't regret saying this, but Billy@permapestfarm.com. Let me know if you can confirm any of this in your area, and give me, as best you can, at least some sort of dot on a map of where you are, so we can put 2 and 2 together on some of this stuff. I'm just floored, Dr. Will, Pat. I'm absolutely blown away, because Bear and I have never talked about anything like this. Never heard him say anything about it. He's never heard me say anything about it. And all of his people are confirming the very same thing. Dr. Will, regarding the injuries on these guys, what did you ascertain as far as, I know you were there for a very short time, and you had to basically get these guys treated and move on, because as I understand it, the medical personnel, if I remember it right, did I hear them correctly that they go to the hospital and they're basically wanting to give them serotonin drugs because they think they're all crazy?
Yeah, they were not being treated for chemical burns and chemical damage at all. They were definitely being stonewalled and misdirected by the medical community. That is correct.
The medical mafia, you guys, has silver. They have colloidal silver baths that they could have put these gentlemen in, and it would have helped to remediate it. This is absolute This is just irresponsible, and it is.
Well, it's diabolical as
It's
well.
organized crime and it's business as usual for them.
Yeah,
At this
the
point.
medical mafia. That's how I refer to them. They have no solutions.
Yeah, but sadly, you know what? They're going to come down. Look, folks, they're going to come down like a ton of bricks on every last one of us here. The powers that shouldn't be, they're going to hear what we said here. I mean, it's unimpeachable. I'll be honest with you. The information has been presented here. This is precisely why we came on here all at one time, dropped all the information at one time so they can't pick us apart separately, so we can drop this out there. And like the great Jim Garrison said, let justice be done though the heavens fall. So I really don't care about the slings and arrows I'm about to suffer. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to stand up and do this work. And we're going to drift into solutions here in a minute. But Neethi, was there anything else you or Rohit wanted to add as far as what you're hearing here? I mean, I know you guys are on the other side of the state. And by the way, folks, if you think everything is working and hunky-dory and everything's so perfect, tell me, why is it, with all the connections I have, I had to reach out to my friends on the other side of the doggone state just to find people who could A, get the samples properly, and B, find a lab that was even able to do it. And of course, Dr. Will's testing is like right on the spot kind of stuff. He has some high-tech stuff that most people just don't even understand or have. But I mean, to do standard accredited testing, I mean, you could, like I said before, you can find bin Laden easier than you can find a lab that actually does what it's supposed to. I mean, is there anything you guys would want to add to any of what we presented so far?
I mean, I think one of the things that I tried to do was keep everything quiet with the lab. I basically told them as little as possible in order to get the samples submitted. All the chain of custodies and everything, they just were coded with numbers and letters. So I knew what the locations were and that the lab didn't. But yeah, I mean, I wanted results based on results, and I didn't want it to be skewed by anyone. And that was the only way that I could think that I could do that, by just keeping it, a number and a letter, and them not knowing anything about where the sample was taken.
I mean, you guys, please look up corporations like Raytheon and Solutions 3 LLC that are working with the Air Force Industrial Complex. I mean, these people are creating the technology to deploy this weather warfare, and the tech companies that support this mass murder. And it is important for everyone to be familiar with this, because they try to say that all of us are, some kind of theorists. Look, when you see Cookie Monster's hand in the jar, there's always people with money who are conspiring. And if you don't know that, I'm sorry, but that's how things have been working for forever. And they don't have any conscience. I've also been saying for a long time that there's this race to control human consciousness. And they're wanting to hold everybody down and keep everybody in this. They want to keep a boot on everybody's neck, basically. I mean, what do you think this barium is doing, guys? I mean, I'd like to hear what Dr. Will has to say about it. But what I know about the barium is that it causes homicidal and suicidal behavior. If nothing else, it keeps everybody arguing. It makes it very difficult for us, the living men and women with the boots on the ground, to get along with each other, because it keeps us all, constantly disagreeing and, going around. Look at what is happening with society today. Am I wrong about this, Dr. Will? I yield to you.
You're muted. Dr. Will, there you go.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you're back.
For those metals and some of those elements, they cause some severe neurological problems and hormonal disruption and so forth. That's definitely, just listen to your side effects of your pharmaceutical advertisements. It's different. It's just worse now. The stuff is raw. It's right there.
Yeah, Dr. Will, let's move on over to Pat because you're coming in. I don't know if your signal's really lousy. I know you're on the road right now doing some other things, but we're catching every other word. You sound
Signal
like a
keeps dropping mysterious. It's kind of interesting how that can be.
yeah, it sure is funny. That's what happens when you're sitting out there dropping the truth bombs out there. All right, let's go on over to the champ, Pat Miletich, not only former UFC world champion, but UFC Hall of Famer, also something of a soil. Man, I can never say this right, man. Like I said, he's got the coolest Pat. I almost screwed up and told everybody your email out there, bro, because it's the coolest email ever. I won't tell everybody what it is because I don't want everybody, just reaching out to Pat Miletich. But anyway, my man is trained. There was a time where basically he had an empire over there at the UFC with a lot of the healing modalities that he was working on. He knew about, but a lot of other people didn't know about it. And some of the other things that you're doing with Dr. Will out there. So, Pat, I can't really defer to Dr. Will right now because he's coming in broken and distorted right now. Hopefully your signal's a little better. But I mean, for the people that are caught up right now, obviously there's going to be a lot of fear and trepidation out there among all the people that hear this thing and think, oh, snap, man, I'm in the middle of this thing. What can I do? I'm screwed. Let me just hang it up. Should they at all be doing that? I mean, because you've dealt with some pretty intense healing journeys yourself. I mean, are you even hearing me, Pat? Because
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you real well, Billy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether or not our signal's being messed up or not, but I mean, for all the people out there that are suffering with some of the ailments or the things they think that are going to happen or the things that are unfolding, or the firemen right now that Will and I met the other day, they're going to be listening right now and they're thinking, oh, I'm screwed. What do I do? I mean, is this the end of the line for them?
No, I mean, look, I'm pretty well versed in a lot of ways to get humans operating at very high levels. Not just the training, but the inputs. Will is a guy who has filled in a lot of the gaps for me in my knowledge and continues to. I've talked to hundreds of homeopathic doctors, and Will's the top of the food chain when it comes to that world. He's extremely knowledgeable. I've had a lot of conversations with homeopathic doctors that are very not in tune with a little confusing to me in terms of, what are the sources? How are the substances grown? What are they grown with? There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, right? And I can tell you this, that, will tell you himself that the environment has become so toxic across the entire country. And it's globally in a lot of places that we notice when people are chelating, detoxing. That's a kind of a word that when you're putting high grade stuff into the body and pushing and chelating the bad out, the environmental toxins, things like that, the heavy metals out of the body. It didn't used to be really a bad deal, but people chelating, detoxing now are going through some pretty painful experiences, and so there's also the combination of, that only 5% of our food, that includes all the foods that would have really high grade antioxidant properties, beneficial properties, are grown with synthetic chemicals. So you got to understand, 38 years ago, when I started figuring a lot of this stuff out for myself and healed my own respiratory system, that wasn't the case at all. So we've got the combination of the things that normally would fix a lot of the situations with people's health are grown with synthetic chemicals, and then thusly the environment is absolutely toxic everywhere. If I sent you an email, Billy, at the beginning of the broadcast, if you want to pull that up and show it on the screen, I don't know if you're able, that is a map of the United States, and this is at the Acres Convention that's been going on the past couple of days. Some of my friends are there. And it's a map of the cancer rates in the United States, Black being the worst. And when you look at that, my home state of Iowa is entirely Black because the cancer rates in Iowa, my home state, are 50% higher
than anywhere else in the country. Now, that map may change, obviously, because of what's happened to Western North Carolina. But I can tell you right now that just while everybody's freaking out about Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, I can tell you that the Midwest is so toxic and the water is so toxic that the University of Iowa Children's Hospital is, hospital parking lots are full. Let's just put it that way, all over the place. And it shouldn't be that way. We do have solutions, but right now, my goal would be, in terms of solutions, is to get people healthy, to get the toxins out of their bodies and continue on a daily basis to put substances into the body that are going to help them operate even in the environment that is what it is. On top of that, people need to be educated about how to fix the problem. Everyone can become part of the Army to fix the problem. We can do that. We do know how to do that, and we know how to educate people at a very fast rate. On top of that, people need to be addressing the mining companies, the military groups in the area, the chemical manufacturing companies, and of course, the insurance companies that cover all of them. We're looking at a lot of corporations potentially, if they were held accountable, and the insurance companies that hold those folks accounts all going belly up from things like this, right? I mean, we're really looking at a really, really bad situation, but it can be corrected. And that's the thing that I keep trying to tell people is that, again, my home state of Iowa is jet black on the map. It's awful. The water in just the Quad Cities, in the Iowa, Illinois Quad Cities, is so full of even just the chemicals they tested for, all of which cause cancer. They're 400 times higher than allowable levels. And that's tap water. That's tap water in Iowa. That's USA tap water. We're dealing with financial incentivization, chemical warfare that's been going on for a minimum of 50 years in the ag industry. And then you add on to it the radioactive substances in the area of North Carolina, and the acids and all the other stuff used in the mining industry. And we talked about the last time, Billy, the quartz mining and the lithium mining, all connected to veins of radioactive minerals, and those waters going through there and washing that stuff all over the place. It's a bad deal. And what do you do? Well, look, we do have solutions for the people. We know that while we're working on the mammoth environmental issues, but the people can be helped.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Pat, because there is no way on earth I would have ever dropped an episode like this without offering some solutions. And folks, look, this is part of what we're doing through this Living Soil Foundation, is that I've partnered up with people like Pat and Dr. Will, who have protocols. I mean, in addition to the ones that we currently use, where they don't work mutually exclusive. I can take their technology, throw it in with mine, and we have test spots going right now. But this is where we get right back into Rohit and Neethi, is that unless we have an ability to gauge whether or not we're doing any good, well, everybody that's in the remediation work out here, they're like, well, I'll just put in some phytoremediation over here, or I'll just drop a little bit of compost here. But if you don't have a means to measure what's going on and to see whether or not, okay, this is working, let's continue doing it, or this isn't working, let's back off and go another way. Now, Pat, why don't you explain? Dr. Will, I guess we just lost him right now. I know he's on the road right now, and I'm just glad we were able to get as much out of him as we were able to.
No problem.
Just to kind of bookends of what, I don't know if he's going to be able to make it back on, but folks, in a nutshell, for those who didn't hear the other day, let me just kind of put bookends on what Dr. Will was, what we experienced down there. These firemen there, y'all, they were scared out of their minds. People chasing them around in black vans, black SUVs. They're seeing helicopters doing, with the little balls on the bottom of them. I guess Bear confirmed that they're also, sniffing out what's going on there, and they're being threatened to a certain extent. Not one of them would go on the record with me. And at first I'm thinking, man, I mean, what's wrong with these guys, man? Wouldn't you want the whole world to know about it? Well, no. And now, I mean, when you're dealing with this and you don't know what may or may not happen to your family, I understand that's going to make people behave differently. So I don't hold any ill whatever against these guys. But folks, in a nutshell, we could take you to that place, but all those rivers, the one that Rohit tested, the one that Bear tested, all these rivers basically converge into one space, and they lead into Lake Douglas. And in that area, they are having some friggin' problems, and nobody's telling you about it. But here's where here's where we get down to brass tacks on some of these solutions. Neethi over on her channel, Neethi the pharmacist, she has a portion of the answers. I got a portion of the answers. People like Joel Salatin has a portion of the answers. Dr. Will has a portion of the answers. Oh, and I guess he's back again. Let's just see if we can get him this time. Dr. Will has some answers, and Pat has some answers. So, I had the benefit of being able to meet these guys a little while back. And once again, y'all, I was praying to the good Lord, asking, Lord, please, this is beyond me. And it feels overwhelming. I don't even know what I can do about any of this. I knew that biologically there's a lot I know that I can do, but my methods take years. And Dr. Will, if you're back with us, you and Pat, why don't you guys explain exactly how we're partnered up and how we're working on remediating this stuff right now. And if the test spots that I'm working on with you guys right now, and I got another one, by the way, that's going to kick off this Sunday, got a whole work party coming out to go install this stuff. Tell us, first of all, Dr. Will, are you even back with us, or am I going to talk to a cyborg?
I can hear you right now. Can you hear me?
Okay.
We can hear you, Will.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you guys
Fantastic.
Tell them about some of the experiments and what we're doing. To me, it's an experiment, but to you, it's old hat. Why don't you kind of give everybody the rundown of what it is you do?
So the products that we have, they're separated as natural microorganisms of all different types, and they basically, they meaning the microbes, they eat heavy metals, if you will. They create exudates, enzymes that break and convert. I like to use the word transmute because they're taking a toxin, whether it's radioactive elements, whether it's metal, plastic, genetically modified proteins or whatever, and digest them and convert them or turn them into essential fatty acids. That's a benefit for the environment. So that's in a nutshell. And so when you put these products, these microbes in an environment, and you just keep saturating them, keeping them in there, they're going to digest the junk and basically convert it or turn it into a beneficial compound for the environment. So that's the elevator version.
Yeah. Now, okay, folks, I'm just going to tell you right now, and frankly, I don't even care where the criticism comes from. I'll put it this way. In the area that I work in these biological sciences, people are going to tell you that the work that people like Dr. Will and Pat and the work that they do doesn't work. They're going to tell you that emphatically. Well, I'm not a person that's going to tell you that. I don't believe in dogma. I believe in actually going out there, doing the real deal experiments myself and finding out. And so these guys gave me plenty of, I'm working closely with them, and we're going to find out the full extent of what this, of how well their stuff works. Now, Dr. Will, is this all theoretical, or have you done this before?
No, it's not theoretical. Actually, Pat has the findings from our latest PFAS tests that there's no such thing as forever chemicals anymore with us, because we can digest those and eliminate those out of the environment without having excavation taking place either. So it's not theoretical. We have a partner,
Hey, Dr. Will,
almost 40 years as well.
Hey, let's we'll let Pat run with it from here because I know you can't tell it, but on my end, if Forrest Gump were a cyborg, that's what he'd sound like. So I mean, you're really messing with your signal right now, bro. Pat, can you fill in where Dr. Will was? I mean,
So, I mean, this has been done by individuals. We'll just say there's not been a lot of them, but there's been folks very knowledgeable in this world of remediation and transmutation that have done this before. I've watched even tests on oil slicks on top of water with these microbes ingesting and converting the oil in real time in a very short amount of time. And we're talking 30 minutes, I think, even less. And the fish come up and start eating the oil after it's been converted because, that's what these microbes were created to do. That you have to understand. So for the chemists of the world, I almost strangled a chemist one time, actually, more than one, but one of them laughed at me and said, when I was talking about one of the substances that we use for soil, for humates in general, decomposed plant matter in varying stages or varying concentrations and nutrient levels and things like that are incredible substances, right? Just those things by themselves. One of them actually asked me, can I synthesize this substance? And I wanted to pick him up by his neck just for making that statement. He didn't understand, how offensive that is to me. But that's what we're dealing with. But nonetheless, that's what these microorganisms, these extremophiles were created to do, are to put the finishing touches on the metals that have worked their way into the soil from the crust of the earth and convert them into, again, carbon bonded nutrients that are, that provide vitality for crops, for soil, for forests, for all living organisms, insects, animals, humans on the earth. So all toxins can be converted by these microorganisms. Everything on the earth is food to them. People have to understand that. And so only the biological experts, and I've been lucky to be around several of them, and Will is one of them, through all of my research of 38 years, understanding how you can take a sick human being, Billy, someone who's very ill, and I'm talking extremely ill, and a year later, the guy's running, 10Ks. He's running, he's playing basketball in the church league. There's elderly people who don't remember the names of their grandchildren, people are sending me videos of their grandchildren or of their fathers and mothers who had, no recollection of who they even were, out in the yard playing with the kids, and they remember all the grandkids' names. The toxins in the environment are causing all of our illnesses. That the environment is what causes organic organisms like human beings to go sideways. So you just have to know what to put in the organism to remove the things that are causing the problems and put the high-grade substances in to correct cellular operations and DNA repair and all those things that take place. This is not miraculous. This is not miracles. They're not miracles. This is biological science, right? So people have to understand, yes, this is very real. And there are solutions for all the environmental problems that lead to all the issues with human health issues, right?
Well, the cool thing about this is, like I said, I wouldn't even have done a program I would have blown the whistle. I'm not even going to lie about it. I mean, I would have blown the whistle either way, but you know what? It's really awesome that we do have potential solutions out here that we're able to put into place, folks. And that's where we come in. I mean, look, we're not going to find any solutions. They're going to give $1 billion to Africa to rebuild after natural disasters, but we got $750 for the people here in North Carolina. We're never going to get the help from the government. We're never going to get help from all the powers that shouldn't be. So it's going to be people like us in roundtables like we have right now, where we're going to find these solutions.
Well,
We're not gonna
people
find any other
people
place.
have to remember all those people. Look, I've done government contract work. I have trained a lot of law enforcement, a lot of military, a lot of good human beings. Um, the people that are afraid, that are the fear-based conditioning that is being used on all of us, and that includes the people within government agencies and chemical corporations and all these places who are afraid that they're going to lose a paycheck and not be able to take care of their children. That's a real fear, man. That's a real fear for people. You have to understand that. We have to humanize this and understand what all of us are dealing with. But I can tell you this, is that the decisions, the short-term decisions to provide that paycheck and that mortgage payment and that grocery bill right now could and probably will lead to some real serious issues for your children down the road. Maybe while you're still alive, probably, but definitely when we're gone. And to me, that's not. Look, what are they going to do to me? What are they going to do to me that is not worth my children? At what point do the people start saying to themselves, if somebody's going to kick your front door in and shoot your children, are you going to step in front of that gun? Well, it's time to step in front of the gun, brother. It's time. It's time. Like at some point, people have got to stand up for what's right. And I get it. There's a lot of people that aren't willing to do that. That's okay. But there's a lot of people that are just on the verge, they're tired of it. They're tired of it. And those people do work for the government, and those people do work for these chemical corporations, and they do have children, and there are going to be penalties paid by our children unless we change direction. That's it. There's no two ways for me, and that's just the way it is. And so again, what are they going to do to me that my children are not worth? I don't know. There's nothing they could do to me.
No, I'm right there with you. Hey, Jim, kind of being a fly on the wall this whole time. Man, we got to get over there to you, bro. I mean,
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks so much. I just wanted to circle back to something we talked about earlier, talking about solutions. I'm from Michigan, and I was reminded during this conversation of the Flint water crisis that happened, where they knowingly covered up lead being leached into the water supply, and a lot of talk about the children. A lot of the level of Legionnaire's disease just was higher around there than most other places. And I'm looking it up right now, and one of the solutions were 15 people got arrested. Now I think they've dismissed a lot of those cases, but at least they went forward and arrested those folks and gave 7 of them felonies. Again, I think they get thrown out on some sort of technicality, but that is one kind of a solution, is to locking the crooks up and putting them behind bars so they can't keep committing crimes. But I don't know if we're there yet, but that's what I'd like to see happen. I can tell you that.
well, Neethi, do you think locking them up is sufficient? Am I going to regret asking this question?
These are hanging crimes. These aren't locking up crimes. I mean, this is land law. What they're doing is murdering on scale, and it is not okay. Somebody, Billy in the chat, is asking about Geiger counters, and so Rohit wanted to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I wanted to say that we did take some Geiger counter readings in the area that we were doing the sampling in as well. But we have a calibrated piece of equipment. It only the range is finite, and all the levels that we got were background levels. But I know that Dr. Will did some other type of readings as well and got elevated levels because he could change the scales and the ranges on his Geiger counter. So I'd like to see if maybe Pat can talk on that.
Pat, Jim, whoever, because that you guys have mentioned this before, and we want to reiterate that when anything that we're doing is going to be like EPA level testing, and it's all, they kind of have one of our hands tied behind our back the whole time. You guys want to elaborate on that a little bit?
let me jump in real quick. The EPA, I mean, let's keep in mind that right after Fukushima Daiichi went off, all of a sudden, all the radiation that was coming across the Pacific, well, all they did was raise the allowable standard. I mean, that's
right.
all they did. So
Right. These people are corporations,
Yep.
friends. They're not, these are private for-profit corporations. So what we need to comprehend first is that these dead fictions aren't going to give us the truth. Okay. And then further, we need, if folks are saying things about mushrooms and all, we know about all this stuff, friends. We know we're going to get into the natural solutions and all the things that we have. But I think that what Pat and Jim and Dr. West have come up with is maybe mushrooms on steroids or something a little bit more potent.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, fungus the mycelium is important in the process of breaking things down, as our bacteria, as our, all of the components of the living creatures in the soil that were built for this process. But getting down to the extremophiles again, that put the finishing touches on the molecular structure of these elements through a digestive process is essential. But yeah, the life has to be put back in the soil to correct things. And but when you put massive amounts of extremophiles down on toxic soil, they will go to work and they will ingest and they will convert. And we've got the data back on heavy metals. We've got the data back on forever chemicals. We've got the data back on numerous substances that, even one of the tests that was cut short, it was supposed to be a 4-month test, was cut short. In 2 months, the forever chemicals had been already, many of them down to 0, and a lot of the others down to 50%, 20%, things like that. So it's a matter of months, not years. When you understand the combinations of extremophiles that are needed to do the work. And yes, there's solutions for all of it. What I have a problem with is that there are people out there because of their education and believe that maybe because they have a PhD or a degree or whatever it is, and we're never taught these things by design, that, look, 1933, I'll go back to 32, 33, in the Depression, when anhydrous ammonia was introduced in agriculture. There's no mistake when we talk to an Oxford PhD we interviewed a couple times a decade ago, talking about the Frankfurt infusion, the Frankfurt School infusion into American universities. The takeover was well thought out. The miseducation was precise in its manner, in thought, in medical sciences, in agriculture sciences, all of these things. And I'm sorry if people are offended to hear that they've been miseducated. Tough luck. That's just the way it goes. And it's time to dive back into the books and start understanding that there are solutions, and that unfortunately, maybe all the PhDs don't have the answers, because we're in this situation in agriculture. The soils across the country are destroyed. Human health has been destroyed, in large part due to academia, right? So, but there are solutions, and it's time to wake up and let's correct things for our children. Really.
Hey, Pat.
If I can interject, I think it's important to note that the soil can be remediated. Right now, the current solution is to just pick up a bunch of soil and the contaminated soil and move it to another place and dump it somewhere else, so the other place is contaminated. It's important to note that this can be remediated in place for
it's called in situ. In situ, meaning where the soil sits.
Right. For a fraction of the cost of what it would take for the EPA to come in and, that circus to come into town and do what it doesn't do. It's a lot better solution.
Well, Jim,
trying to put it away. They think there isn't a way. It's like Joel Salatin says, there is no away. Where are you throwing it away at?
Yeah, but to that point,
children. They all have children, dude. They all have children.
That's the biggest hurdle right now. I'm trying to get people to understand on one of the sites I was working today is trying to get them to understand. I'm working with this guy. He seems like a great guy, and his wife is thinking they need to scrape off the. I'm like, it's the worst thing in the world you can do. Number one, you're just going to make it even worse. You're going to spread it out. You're going to do all these crazy things that you don't want to do. But, to your point, Pat, think about, and everybody out there, just do your own thinking, do your own research. The most worthwhile things that have ever happened in human history were never done by a PhD, ever. In fact, or somebody says, oh, well, where's your degree? Well, let me ask you, where was Nikola Tesla's degree? Where was Edison's degree? All these incredible people that did incredible things that were the most comprehensive and life-changing for most of the world. Most of them were nothing more than tinkerers in their garages, if we had to get down to brass tacks. But Neethi, to you and Rohit's point, I know Dr. Will isn't here right now, but correct me if I'm wrong, Pat. They were asking about how he's able to detect radiation, if I understood the question correctly.
Yeah. So, the technology is similar again to when NASA has the Hubble telescope take a picture of a planet, and then they come back and they tell you what elements are in the planet. Well, elements give off frequencies. Toxins give off frequencies. We each have frequencies. This desk that I'm sitting at has a frequency that it vibrates at. Everything has a frequency. So understanding how to dial in for certain frequencies, and it can tell you what's in the soil, what's in the human body, what's in the water, what bad and good. And then you understand, when you understand the elements in the biology, what to put in, whether it's a human being that's suffering from issues or soil, to correct the situation, right? And so that's really what it comes down to. It's technology that is used actually by quite a few people. It's just not widely talked about. And of course, when we look at the systems that are in place in all areas of our life, those systems are used as containment walls of thought, of our true ability to think for ourselves, to think out of the box, to create solutions. And that's really what it comes down to, is that, yeah, all of these things can be. That's why Will was picking up the levels and types of radiation that he was, the acid levels that he was, because the tunings were set into the device to look for those.
Yeah, so it's whereas Dr. Will explained it to me this way, is that you're working with a Geiger counter, you're working within a very narrow band in which they have it set, and that's all it can see. But he's working with tech that seems, by all measurable accounts that I can see, that seem to be far more superior to the mainstream stuff that we're able to buy off the shelf. And I'll tell you what, we're going to have proof here before long, because I am quite literally on the ground working on the remediation. And this Sunday, I actually am going to be part of a class where we're doing some remediation. The very site that Dr. Will talked about. In fact, Rohit, you talked about, the place where you took that sample in the what's the name of that community? I can never remember. The
Rollins community.
Rollins community. Yeah, we got a site over there that we actually have. We went out there, met, like the one I was just talking about a moment ago. We're actually going to go out there and we're going to start remediating. We're going to use my stuff, which is basically going to be compost extract, which is very biocomplete, along with some vermicompost, and then along with Dr. Will's stuff. So, and then the cool thing is we can put it all together, and doing the testing, we know what we started with. So now when we come back here in a couple of months and we test it again, and we can say, oh my goodness, man, this stuff looks so much better. We're going to know what works, or we're going to know what to tweak or what to make better. So folks, this is what I'm saying. Don't get down in the mouth, because like Neethi was getting at, I mean, to me, this is one giant land grab when you get down to brass tacks. Well, think about the crap sandwich we can feed every last one of them out there if we're able to raise the kind of money we need for the testing, to verify it, to get the materials and the products and everything else we need to be able to turn this thing around without government. and be able to take some old boy where, let's say he's lived up in these mountains for 7 generations. He's 2 hollers over, and they're going to, I mean, literally, y'all, the devastation is like I could throw a rock and hit it. Yeah, somehow. What was that? Go ahead. Yeah. I guess we had some kind of interference there, but I'm not sure what it was. Anyway, the point being is that if we can go out there, remediate this stuff, turn it around, and get these people back on their land and heal the land and even the water. I know it sounds like a tall order, but I'm willing to take on the challenge. So I know what I do. I know that it can be done in years, but hopefully with the tech I'm getting from Dr. Will, we can get this stuff done in record time. So look, I know we've been going for quite a while here. Let's just kind of do closing remarks. Let's start with Rohit and Neethi.
All right. So closing remarks. I think just based on the testing that I did, to just summarize, I would say that the levels of heavy metals are elevated. The radiation levels in the water were elevated. I would not want to stay there or move there or drink the water at this point. I don't know how it's getting filtered or what it's going through, but I wouldn't be happy with what I'm getting from the government as far as results and trusting that right now.
Well, you can't filter heavy metals. Let's just be clear. And, distilling the water is the only way to actually clean it. And they don't do that, which is ridiculous. We've had this conversation before. And as far, I think that we really need to try to see what we can do to help people feel comfortable evacuating if they can. I think a lot of folks, you're talking about the land grab. One thing that's important for everyone to comprehend is that there is no federal right. They have the feds have no right to come and take over anybody's land. Anyone who's having any problem with that, you should let us know, because we can help you with that here on North Carolina for sure. Because there is no such thing as federal eminent domain. And so don't believe that. There's a lot of lies and misinformation out there. And it's more than we can talk about in the next 2 minutes, I think.
Do you want to give out your information in case somebody does want to contact you about that?
Sure. Yeah. If you go to the Food Church Linktree, it has all of my contact information on it. And I can put it in the chat. We can put it on the show notes, Michelle.
Yeah, I can put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, because people just, I don't want anybody to leave right now believing that nature doesn't have this all figured out, that we can't remediate it. Let's just start with that. There is a way to remediate it. And I don't think we got into enough of the details of that part of it, Billy. And I know that we've been talking for a long time. I think it was really important for people to know that there is a problem and you are being lied to, and you should be careful not to believe the media mafia. And with that, I'll yield to Jim or Pat.
Yep. Unless we're going to use the ghost of Bear over there, maybe if he's still listening, maybe he wants to come in. Bear, if you want to jump in at some point and kind of drop out, drop some wisdom on the back end. But Jim, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I want to say that, kind of circle back to what Pat was saying. The technology is not new. We talked about Tesla. People have probably heard of the Rife machine, and I think of the great work of Elmer Green at the Menninger Foundation there in Kansas, where he was measuring auras and vibrational stuff back in the 60s. So I think that some of this technology has been suppressed. Our predecessors have figured a lot of the stuff out, and it's just been suppressed by corporations that make money off it being suppressed. So I think now a lot of that's breaking back out again. So I think we're gonna have hopefully have a renaissance in natural healing and natural medicine going forward. And I appreciate you having me on your podcast today. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I want to go out there with semi loads of product and just hand it out to people, and let's just get products in people's hands and get their bodies cleaned out. Let's keep them cleaned out so that they can help us with the work, that they can receive the education and the understanding that it's going to take to fix the soil, to fix the water, because all of it can be fixed. And we know that. We do know that. And so, as Needy said, is that, man, I was saying this years ago, that the power of nature, the power of the creator has given us the substances and, again, the biology to be able to correct all things synthetic, all things that have been dug up out of the earth that are harmful, that are supposed to slowly release into the soil to be remediated by these microbes. But I just want to go and I want to just hand these programs out to people for their bodies, for their children, look, this is stuff that I put in my children. I've got 3 children. My kids, knock on wood, at 22, 20, and 11 have never been sick one day in their lives besides maybe a sniffle or something. Just because I've been paying attention to this stuff for 38 years and have been lucky enough to stumble upon some really smart people and do some research on my own to heal my own health issues as a child. I don't want kids to be sick. That's it. I want kids to be healthy. I want people to be healthy. I want people to be educated so that they can educate their children. Like I've spent a lot of time educating my children. This is something that knowledge that must be passed down. So there you go. That's my dreams and desires.
Well, we're going to work on that. My man Bear, clean it up, brother.
Well, first of all, I'd like to express my concern that nobody told me about the cool glasses that were required to be on tonight's live stream. And next time I resolve to do better. So apologies to everybody, the panel and the audience. Billy, thank you for having me on. To piggyback on what Niti said and what Pat said, none of this Hurricane Helene, as we've labeled it, and the aftermath, none of this surprised the creator of the universe. Like, he wasn't up there going, oh shit, I had no idea that was going to happen. Okay. And so if we go back to how I opened a couple hours ago, I have 3 primary concerns. One is the safety of the people, right? To piggyback on what Pat is saying here. The people who live there, the people who are going to live there, and the people who are currently working there to love their neighbor as themselves, right? So let's deal with that. The second is people have got to understand, yes, FEMA is terrible at their job because this isn't actually their job. This is just cover for action, okay? And it is our job to love our neighbor as ourselves. And I think this is an excellent opportunity to do that. And there's going to be a lot of learning in the days, weeks, months, years ahead as to how we do this. And it is not a coincidence, Billy, that I just happened to run into you a couple of years ago and we vibed and we continue to just run into each other. And then something like this happens and we all know each other. And so we are pieces on the chessboard that the creator gets to move around and use for his will. And that's to love our neighbor as ourselves, to love people, right? To help people. And this is a gigantic problem. Cool. Whatever. Awesome. How do we attack it? How do we break it into its constituent pieces and begin to put it back together again? And it sounds like you guys are onto something here. I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. I don't know how I contribute to this other than, help raise awareness. And the next time somebody gets schwacked by a tornado or a hurricane, go there and punch said storm in the face and do what we do with Grindstone. But I'm in, however we got to do it. And then I think we need to continue to spread the truth of what is actually happening there. Not for clicks and likes and views and really good sound bites, but because it matters, because there's real people who are there. And it's going to be people like us and people, all the unsung heroes that are there, all the nameless volunteers, the people that have, just stopped their everyday life to show up and help people that are going to get this thing done. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's not the government's job. It's our job. They're not coming for you. They're not coming to save you. They're not coming to enslave you. They're just not coming. They don't care. It's our job to care. And that's my final piece. And we do. And that's awesome. And what a wonderful blessing and opportunity that we get to care at this level, at this level of the game. It's an honor, honestly.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I'll tell you what, Bear, not to get all broke back on you here, bro, but I'm going to send you these glasses. I'm going to autograph them on the side, and I'm going to put Permaculture Pimp Daddy on the side and just send them off to you, bro, so you don't feel left out next time.
You know, having to explain to people how I came to have those glasses is punishment enough. Thank you, Billy.
Now I'm gonna get someone some rhinestones put in there, bro. We're gonna have you looking like a walking Glenn Campbell song.
Give him some bling, huh? Get some bling on there.
Well, hey, folks. I mean, look, come full circle with this thing. I started off with this Citizens Times article in a nutshell, basically saying it's all clear. Michelle and I, when we were doing our little rounds today, we went by a restaurant tour in Asheville, and they're about to open up here before too long. And we raised a lot of money to keep them in business because they were feeding, I don't even know how many thousands of people on their own dime at candlelight even though the government said, hey, you can't work here, they were feeding people anyway. There's almost certainly, I don't even know how many lives they've probably saved. But in a nutshell, just to come full circle with this, they told them the water would not even be ready to be up and running. What did they say? Until the middle of December.
Till mid-December.
And they said they were told by the city that it's a mathematical certainty that they can't get it done sooner because of the amount of time it would take to flush the water and do all this. There was no way they were going to get it up. And then all of a sudden, if you don't know, folks, we live in a place that runs on tourism. Excuse me. Asheville is one of those places that runs entirely on tourism. And people were complaining. All of a sudden, the water came back on. And then they're like, hold on. So to this day, they are still baking their bread. They had the wherewithal, the sense, the chutzpah, the knowledge. And frankly, let's just be honest. I mean, just the downright common sense to realize they couldn't trust the government. So they have been baking their bread with filtered, purified water out of bottles since that time, even though the government said. So we'll be doing an expose on them and where you ought to be doing business with smart people. I want to thank everybody here. I want to thank Bear. I want to thank Rohit and Neethi. I want to thank Pat. I want to thank Jim. And I want to thank the Dr. Will, who's no longer here right now, apparently. He can't get in. But folks, I mean, if you didn't take anything away from all this, know that your government lies to you and they brought the receipts, nephew. Till next time, y'all, stay alert.
Stay alive.
They don't want an individual, just a carbon copy. You spitting that manicotti, yeah, I'm talking saucy. All they want to build is a prison world full of pet Tamagotchis. Living kamikaze, got me out of body like I'm Goku SS3. They want to push me to the center like a cell. They want to spin up at the center of the nexus, me. They want me to bow down, but I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I will never bow down, 'cause I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. They want me to bow down, but I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I will never bow down, 'cause I'm a warrior.
All right.
All right. Thanks and pleasure to meet you guys, Rohit and Neethi.